Have you ever wondered what it might be like to trick-or-treat in Hyrule? Now I know Halloween isn't really a thing in the Zelda universe, but what if it was? It makes me think, what would it be like to trick-or-treat? It inspired me to put some thought into the matter, so let's think about it. What's the best iteration of Hyrule to trick-or-treat in? Let's rank all of the 3D games from worst to best. We're gonna focus entirely on the 3D games here just for the sake of narrowing the scope and letting me get this video out today. So let's start with the worst place to trick-or-treat, which I think would be the world of Skyward Sword, and really this is for one primary reason. There's just only one place to trick-or-treat, Skyloft. And I think that trick-or-treating in Skyloft would be fine. You know, there's enough buildings and the people there are all pretty good spirited. I have no doubt they hand out good candy. But the fact of the matter is, if you're a child, you're not going to really be riding your Loftwing down to the surface to trick-or-treat to nobody. So who knows, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe if you can actually get to them, the Mogma hand out full-sized cans of soda, and the Perella give out awesome candy gift bags. But still, how are you going to get down to them without a Loftwing? I just think that in the world of Skyward Sword, the trick-or-treating is going to be relegated to Skyloft, which will be fine, but it's going to be better in just about every other game. So Skyward Sword is in last place for the Great Hyrule Trick-or-Treat ranking. Next up, we have the flooded world of Wind Waker. This one's a bit trickier. I think Windfall would be fine. They have an elementary school, so clearly they do care about kids, and I bet they would be willing to put effort into making sure they had a fun Halloween. And everybody on the island is reasonably jovial. I have no doubt the kids would have a lot of fun wandering around the island trick-or-treating, and Windfall itself is begging to be covered in Halloween decorations. The problem is really just that, well, these kids aren't going to get to trick-or-treat anywhere else. What are the parents going to do? Suit up a ship so they can take to the seas and take their kids trick-or-treating island to island so they can sail to Tingle Island and get 3 pieces of bizarrely moist candy from him? Sail to Dragon Roost Island and use bombs to climb up the mountain just to get some bird food dumped in their bag? Risk dealing with tornadoes and water monsters just to make it to Outset Island and go to 3 houses? It just doesn't seem practical. I think Windfall would be a lot of fun for the kids, but the downside to trick-or-treating in the world of Wind Waker is that once Windfall Island is done, you're kinda done trick-or-treating. In third place, we have the world of Ocarina of Time. Although I want to be specific because I honestly think it depends entirely on the time period you're trick-or-treating during. If you're a kid before Ganondorf takes over, I think it's great. Hyrule Castle is absolutely bustling and you'll get a ton of candy for sure. Even during the nighttime, the city has a fair bit of life, so you probably can keep going pretty late. And even if you're a child from one of the other races like the Goron or the Zora, you're still in luck. Both of those cities have a lot of inhabitants, and that means a lot of candy for you. The areas are also really close together, so as long as you leave early in the day, you can probably trick-or-treat in the other villages pretty easily. The downside is that you're on a time limit. You are pretty restricted to your own area once nighttime comes. If you're from Castletown and you want to trick-or-treat with the Gorons, for example, you better get your butt back home before nighttime, because once the moon comes up, those Stalfos will be more than happy to relieve you of your candy haul. I do think it would suck once the time skip happened though, probably bottom of the list. Goron City is barely populated, the Zora are gone entirely, and good luck trick-or-treating in Kokiri Village without getting eaten by a Deku Baba. And if you're from Castletown, well, I don't think these gentlemen will give out very good candy. Probably candy corn. Nasty. You'll get some success in Kakariko, but with the amount of refugees they've taken on from Castletown, there might be a candy shortage. So I think we can say that Ocarina of Time during the Child Link period has huge potential for trick-or-treating, but only before the time skip, and you have to be home before dark. But really, it's kind of the only place where the children can probably wander the fields of Hyrule in safety as long as they are home before nighttime and they stay away from that horrifying Peahat. In the rest of the games, Hyrule fields are just kind of always dangerous, and for that reason, Ocarina of Time is the 4th best place to go trick-or-treating. The second best place to trick-or-treat absolutely belongs to Termina, kind of. More specifically, it belongs to Clocktown. I actually think Termina itself is a horrible place to trick-or-treat. It's not really a safe place for children to be wandering around, and there isn't really anywhere for them to go. I can guarantee Cremia and Romani would absolutely hand out good candy, probably full-size chocolate bars, but the ranch is blocked off with a boulder until the final day. I guess they could go visit the Deku King. Maybe he'll give them strips of boiled monkey if they can reach him. Maybe the Zora will be willing to give them candy if they can swim to them. Other than that, there's really not much out there. but Clocktown itself is excellent. Clocktown is begging for trick-or-treaters. There are buildings everywhere, people are all over the place, and the entire town is built in a giant circle that makes it really easy for trick-or-treaters. And with masks being such a prevalent theme in the game, the idea of wearing costumes is kind of a given. Not to mention that the town is already in a festive mood with the festival on the horizon. These kids are probably going to make out like a bandit with all the candy they get. So Clocktown is excellent for trick-or-treating, even if Termina at large is not so hospitable for wandering children. Plus, on the final day, with the moon hours away from crushing everybody in a violent death, the kids can guarantee everybody will be home to answer the door. The second best place to trick-or-treat belongs to the Hyrule of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I think the trick-or-treating experience would be relatively similar across the two games, and I think it would be great. Especially if you live in one of the larger civilizations like Hateno, you're going to get tons of trick-or-treating even just there. But the thing that's really great about the Hyrule in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is that the highways seem to be relatively safe. You do run into people being accosted by monsters every now and then, but by and large that doesn't stop people from traveling to and from different locations, and the vast majority of them seem to have completely peaceful journeys. So if a couple of town guards are willing to escort the kids, I think they absolutely could go from town to town completely safely and trick-or-treat. In Hyrule Field in Ocarina of Time, I think they can probably go by themselves as long as they stay away from the P-Hat, which is why I give it the slight edge in terms of that. But the reason why I'm putting Breath of the Wild Hyrule above Ocarina of Time is just because of how many people there are in the different civilizations and how much candy these kids would be able to get if they traveled with guards from village to village trick-or-treating. It would be excellent. Not only that, but Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom have big focus on the ability to wear costumes, so we know that these kids would absolutely be able to get some pretty good costumes, especially in Hateno Village in the time period of Tears of the Kingdom. So I think that Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild's Hyrule would be a fantastic place to trick-or-treat, simply because the sheer number of people who live in the villages and the fact that you can reasonably get from one village to another without having your head removed from your body, as long as you are safe and traveling in the company of adults who are armed and can protect you from monsters. And the number one place to go trick-or-treating without any doubt in my mind is Castletown in Twilight Princess. Look at this place. It is begging to be trick-or-treated in. There are houses everywhere. There are so many alleys to go down and trick-or-treat at. The ambience of the place is already spooky just right off the bat, especially at nighttime. The city itself is more or less completely safe, so you can trick-or-treat well into the night without worrying about anything. And just the sheer number of places to trick-or-treat really places Twilight Princess's Castletown ahead. Like, check this out. Let's say as a child you're starting off at the fountain here and you're going to trick-or-treat. The first place you decide to go is the path to the east of where you currently are. You follow down this path, and as you can see, there is an untold number of houses on either side of you just waiting for you to knock on the door and ask for candy. And as you reach the end and you reach the gate, take a look down here, and there's an entire other row of houses just waiting to be trick-or-treated at. Continue down that path and you get to another road full of houses. Following that brings you back to this main area where there are yet again an entire section of houses. The trick-or-treating here would be immaculate, there's no doubt about it. I don't think that it would be very safe to go visit the other towns. Twilight Princess's Hyrule in particular is quite dangerous, but Castletown is so enormous and so fruitful that I think the kids could simply stick to the village they're from and they would leave with bags and bags and bags of candy. It's not even a question in my mind. I think that Hyrule Castle would offer the children so much candy that they would end up with more candy than if they were to trick-or-treat in Termina and Ocarina of Time's Hyrule put together. So that's my answer. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree with my rankings about trick-or-treating in Legend of Zelda? Do you think it would be pretty cool being a kid in the Legend of Zelda universe? Or are you pretty content to trick-or-treat in our universe? Are there any other video game universes you think would be particularly good? I always wonder what it would be like trick-or-treating in Midgard. Kind of seems like it would be scary, but let me know what you think in the comments down below, and happy Halloween. I have a true Nehru quality Halloween video coming out. I just couldn't quite get it done in time for Halloween Halloween itself. I'm sorry about that, but please look forward to it. And I hope you have a wonderful Halloween day. I hope if you have kids, they have a wonderful, safe time trick-or-treating. And if you don't, I hope you get up to something spooky and just have a good time. As always, stay safe out there and stick with your friends tonight if you do go trick-or-treating, because it's dangerous to go alone.